With so many PC builds on YouTube, the one group of people that seem to be unfairly underrepresented are the creators. We're talking animators, editors, audio engineers, special effects artists, all of you guys. But the funny thing about this category is that building a system to destroy these types of workflows also ends up building a ridiculous gaming PC. But just because a good gaming PC is also a good creator PC doesn't mean that we shouldn't be focusing on some creator-specific features. And that's exactly the computer that we're going to be building today. This PC is quite literally going to be the fastest machine that I have ever built, and I can't wait to show you guys everything from the parts list, why I chose them and how much they should cost, to the obligatory build montage, which should be really quite beautiful, and then the performance of this beast. So ultimate mainstream creator PC, let's do this. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is jump straight into the parts list, because there's some choices in here that are very much creator specific, and I need to tell you why. One of the most obvious examples of this is the ASRock X570 Creator motherboard. We have PCIe Gen 4 on every slot, giving us high-speed storage and great upgradability into the future. But the thing that really makes this motherboard special is that it has dual Thunderbolt 3 built in. Now this is going to be crucial to a lot of creators out there, but for those who don't use Thunderbolt and do everything over the network, it also has 10 gigabit Ethernet too. Now this is the only motherboard with that selection of features, which makes it incredibly creator specific. As for a CPU, we went with the Ryzen 9 5950X, 4.9 GHz max boost, 16 cores, 32 threads. This is an absolute workhorse of a CPU, and there's nothing better in the mainstream market right now. For our memory, we went with the Corsair Vengeance Pro, two 32 gig sticks at 3200 CL16. This is incredibly stable memory and also gives us the ability to upgrade it to 128 gigs from 64, if we ever need to in the future. For our GPU, we've gone with the NVIDIA RTX 3080 Founders Edition. Now this thing is an absolute weapon, especially in GPU accelerated workflows, and I've actually stolen this from my gaming PC. I'm definitely going to be able to buy another one soon, right? No. Fucking hell. Now we can't go too much further without talking about this thing. This is a PCO11 Dynamic Mini from Lian Li. This case is absolutely stunning. Typically for a work PC, I would recommend caring less about aesthetics, but I would argue that with a creator PC, if it's next to you and it looks beautiful, it might help towards the creative aspect of your job. Which brings us very nicely over to how I'm going to justify RGB fans for this build. These are the Arctic P12 PWM PST fans. I've recently used them for my gaming PC and was incredibly happy with them. And because they're cost effective and also come in a 3-pack, I chose them for this build too. For our boot drive, we're going with a 1TB Gen 4 M.2 SSD from Aorus. And then for our scratch disk, we're going with a 2TB SX8200 Pro from XPG. And feeding power to our system, we have the V850 SFX Gold from Cooler Master. This is quite literally the most powerful SFX power supply. That might come with an issue. More on that in a bit. And to cool our CPU, we've gone with the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2. Now this is one of the best closed-loop liquid coolers on the market and will be more than powerful enough to cool our CPU. And that brings our total MSRP to around $3,500, or given the fact that you can't really buy the CPU or the GPU in stock anywhere at the moment, you're gonna have to go scalper pricing, and then it becomes more like infinity money and 3 kidneys. But before we build this, I wanna make a couple recommendations to you and a bit of a justification as to why I chose a couple of these parts. Number one, this case. This is a beautiful case. I love this case, but it comes with its own quirks. Most cases with ATX motherboard support, like this one, also have ATX power supply support. This one does not, it's SFX only, which is fine because we have a powerful SFX PSU that's more than capable for this hardware. The only problem with this specific one is it looks great on paper, 850 watts of power. There's been a few reports of this PSU having erratic fan ramping, so I'm gonna have to let you know if mine suffers from that too. But this ties back into the case because the only other power supply that I'd be comfortable using is the Corsair SF750 Platinum. But that's so expensive, and I wouldn't have any of these issues really if this case supported ATX power supplies. But then again, I had to go with this case because the heart wants what the heart wants. Number two, most people, including myself, are inclined to recommend an air cooler over a liquid cooler for a production machine such as this. The reason being is that there's less moving parts, less things to go wrong really. But I've decided to ignore that and go liquid cooling because one, it's incredibly easy to swap out if it ever does die. Two, it has a 6-year warranty. The chances of it dying, I think, are very slim. And lastly, I went for a Gen 3 editing drive. One, because I actually already had this. Two, it's going to be more than powerful enough for most people that are editing locally. But you could also go for a Gen 4 drive if you're, say, working with massive files and you want to edit whilst transferring media, and you're doing this from many different cameras too. It just might be overkill for a lot of people. The one that I have is the SX8200 Pro from XPG, but I will not be listing it in the video description because they've been doing some shady shit recently. Therefore, I will be leaving one of their competitors' drives in the video description. Burn. So what say we do a beautiful build montage and get this thing built.
get you out of my mind. It's like I feel it for the first time. Been thinking about you all night. I've been searching for this all my life. You're just my type. I've been looking for a boy who can treat me right. Your dark hair with those eyes so bright. They look into my soul and it sparks my life. Can I take you there? Like it was the first time, do you remember? Can I take you there? Back to when we felt like this was forever. Can I take you there? Like it was the first time, do you remember? Can I take you there? You're all I need. Can I take you there? Can I take you there?
God, I just love the look of the 011 Dynamic series. I'm pretty sure it's almost impossible to build an ugly machine in these cases. So the first thing that I want to do is talk to you about the build process before we then have a look at the performance numbers, because I did also promise you that I'd give you an update on the power supply. But first things first, I'm sorry if you were looking for a how-to step-by-step of building this machine. That really would be its own separate video. It's just a bit too in-depth for this one. But there's a million videos on YouTube for how to build a PC step-by-step. Follow one of those and it should be quite an easy process. But overall, the build went incredibly smoothly, to be honest. Arguably one of the hardest things with a glass fish tank like this is cable management, but Lian Li really have thought about that with brackets and braces and straps, and that makes it incredibly easy to cable manage well. Next, I want to talk about the 8 Arctic ARGB fans in here. These Arctic P12 ARGB fans, they don't have the cool daisy chain like the Arctic Bionics P120 ARGBs, but they do have a pigtail daisy chain splitter solution sort of thing. But the thing that I like the most about them is not only are they great performers, they move a ton of air, but they're less than $15 each in a 3-pack, which makes them incredibly cost effective for fans that look this beautiful. Speaking of RGB, for those of you wondering how I got custom lighting on the NVIDIA RTX 30 series Founders Edition's GPU, I did a video on that recently and you can check that out up in the corner. As for the power supply, I think Cooler Master have fixed the issue. I'm not experiencing any of the fan ramping issues that I've seen a lot on Reddit. I bought this power supply about the 10th of June, so hopefully these Cooler Master power supplies from now and into the future won't have that weird fan ramping issue. So the ultimate question, does it perform as well as it looks? I'm going to run a few different stress tests as well as a few games, because that actually does give us an idea on performance with other tasks as well, such as creative tasks. But the one that's most important to me is timeline and export performance in Premiere Pro, which I will be comparing against my gaming PC now with an RTX 3070 in. God, I love this machine. But the thing that I love the most about this computer is what it means for the channel. It means that I can do all of the cool projects that I've wanted to do on Wraith, basically starting today. But if you haven't seen the video on my NCase M1 gaming machine, I'm gonna leave that video up there and in the description for you. But now I've got to get this beast, who I am calling Athena, goddess of wisdom and war, I think quite appropriate. But I've got to get her integrated into my ultimate desk setup. If you haven't seen that video, I'm gonna leave that in the video description and up there. If you're a creator and you haven't seen that video, definitely go watch it. It's going to be so useful to you. But get subscribed, turn on notifications, make sure that you don't miss upcoming TechLens videos. Otherwise guys, a like is always appreciated. I'll see you in the next one.